the game's really good. Just the grinding, any of those farming things like that, it's terrible. And I did that to myself. I fully know it. I'm like,
Yeah.
you can stop at any moment. Yeah, but I'm so close to the platinum, I might as well just do it, right? I've already wasted like this much time just to get this far. What's a few extra hours? Hello and welcome to another Dead Pixel, a podcast which we usually talk about video games, if we ever get around to it. I'm your host today, Joe, and today with me, I have my friend, my colleague. You probably have a friend like this, the kind of guy who eats the tequila worm ass end first. I mean, just completely wrong. And but here he is, televangelist, QVC, nighttime celebrity, 2 a.m. slot, Nick. How are you doing today, Nick?
Well, I'm doing all right, and I just want to say that uh, chimpanzees they eat the tequila worm the way that I do. So, I mean, I think I'm right in that. Um, I mean, yeah, yeah. That's so. I'm not gonna back down there. But I'm doing all right otherwise. How are you, Joe?
Doing all right, I guess. Yeah, I finally got my computer back last week.
Oh yeah.
So long story short, my computer had been making some interesting noises for the last 6 months, and like a normal person, I procrastinate, and I'm just like, yeah, maybe it'll go away, and it kind of did for a little bit. But it was a fan noise. It was a odd, mysterious ticking noise, and so
It'll be
I just
fine.
got well, it's like so long as it's not a pipe bomb, I'm fine. And so yeah, what happened was I was just like, well, maybe it's the PSU. My power supply, I've had one in the past where it made a similar noise, and it turns out that there was a like a hard plastic casing inside of it to help block off sections some of the inner parts,
Mhm.
and that somehow got loose and was rubbing against the fan blade. So I was just kind of leaving it, and then eventually I wanted to take the guts from my current unit and put it into a new case, and I'd like to maybe make it all liquid cool, do a custom loop because I've never done that, and I thought that'd be fun. So I just and the noise would occasionally go away and then come back. I'm like, all right, well, who knows? It didn't seem to be any particular reason. It wasn't like, oh, I'm in the middle of gaming now, the fans kick in or something. It's gonna make extra. I was like, no, I just boot it up and it'll start making the noise, and then I'm in the middle of gaming and it'll just disappear. So eventually that got more persistent and louder. And then another noise came in that it was another fan noise, it seemed like. I'm like, okay, now something else is wrong with my unit, and I'm not 100% sure what. And then I realized, oh, wait, I still have this thing under warranty because this is the first time I've actually bought a PC from a box store.
Oh
And so
yeah.
I was just like, so I got mine from Micro Center, and it was like, oh, it's still under warranty for another 2 weeks. Okay,
Oh,
cool. Let
two
me.
weeks, really? You really only had 2 weeks
Yeah,
left?
it ends like today. Actually,
Holy
yeah, my
crap, dude.
warranty actually ended today.
You're
So,
so lucky.
uh, yeah. Well, so what I did is I brought it in, and it's a power spec, so it's their house brand or whatever, and they guarantee a 48-hour like turnaround on it.
Yeah.
And so sure enough, later that night, I get a text being like, "Hey, we yeah, if we figured out what's wrong with it, it was your graphics card, so we swapped it." And I'm like, "Oh, cool. Well, I'm glad you swapped. Like you fixed it. That's awesome." So then I went the next day to pick it up, and yeah, they swapped it with a completely different 3080. Well, I have a 3080 in mine, and it's like the one I bought came with a Asus Tough 3080. So that one is one of the, at least when they first came out and launched, it was one of the better ones that you can get. And the one they swapped it with was a GeForce. I think it was called Turbo. Is a blower style. So for those of you who don't know, the blower style has a fan up in the front, and then the rest of it is in a case. And so therefore the fan takes air in and blows it out the back end of your PC. The one I currently or originally had was a 3 fan design, so your traditional looking design. And I'm like, this isn't the same at all. I do not want this one. Like, what can you do, guys? Because I was expecting something equal to or better than the one I got, not downgraded worse. Plus the aesthetics don't look good at all. And they're like, well, I mean, it's still 3080. I'm like, yeah,
Mm,
you can also bring your car to the mechanic and they could swap out your tires and your rims and then be like, yeah, we took out your old rims and then we instead of giving you back the same ones, we're going to just give you back like these entirely different ones. They still the same measurements, the size, but it's still different.
it's like
Or like if they drop,
I got a blue car with a red door on it. It still works.
yeah.
Well,
So
yeah,
I
but
was just, luckily the staff was pretty understanding right away, but unfortunately the manager wasn't in at the time for that department. So I called him later and I talked to him and he's like, "Yeah, I was like, I understand." He's like, "Well, most people don't really pay attention to that." So, and this is honestly what just the corporate gives us. They just give us the replacement parts, or
blame
and so it's
corporate.
I'm like, well, the fact is that turbo, I don't even see it listed for sale on their website. um,
Mm,
so I'm like, it's just like there's very few cards that are equal to that. I mean, there's the Asus Strix and like EVGA, the For the Win edition or whatever. I'm like, those are all equal to, if not better, than the Asus Tough. And so I'm like, I just want something at least equal to, like, it's like, so I had to wait a couple more days while he tried to get restocked, and then I called, like, he was supposed to call me like on a Thursday, didn't he? Then never did. So on Friday I called, he wasn't in. So it took forever. Eventually, I ended up getting it back earlier this week, but we were able to swap it out for a Seuss Tough. So I got the same exact type, put back in, and that noise was gone. It was great because I laid it on side, I plugged it all in, and then fired it up. No sound, sweet. Then I turned the case upright. And then I was like, all right. And now there's a ticking noise. I'm like, oh, son of a bitch.
fuck.
I'm like, because obviously you lay it down on the side, you replace the parts, you hear no noise. You're like, okay, fine. And then, that's probably what they did. And when they turned it upright, I'm like, oh, what is that noise? And then I'm like, it's a fan for sure. So I started pushing on the center of the fans, bringing them to full stop. I'm like, all right, nope, you're working. You are not, like, okay. So the moment I stopped one of them, like, okay, this one, there must be a bearing loose or something in it. So it's just literally one fan that for some reason rattles, but the rest of the noise stops. I'm like, okay, cool. So in the end, I could have, it's like an hour drive for me to get to a micro center. It's like 50 minutes to, but depending on traffic and whatnot, it's just, I'm like, "Oh, I don't want to go there for a third time, because I had to go, it's just like, yeah, not happening. So,
Yeah,
uh,
there's a micro center in Dallas and one in Houston, and they're pretty much equidistant away from Austin, which is like, I think the Houston one might be like 2.5 hours away, but I know the Dallas one is like 3.5 hours away. So I almost never get to go, but it is nice to have them within, like, I don't know, a day's, like a reasonable morning's drive, you know. But yeah, like, I mean, with the shortages the way that they are, it is kind of it's a good thing you're able to get anything. You know, I guess they had to honor the warranty, so they're going to save any cards that they get in that they need in order to honor the warranty. But it's good that they were still able to get you something like what you had originally. But gosh, it sucks that
yeah.
it rattles now.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, shout out to Leo at Micro Center, the manager for the tech department, because he, like I said, he
Leo.
was able to swap it out for the same. I eventually got my same card, and I'm like, all right, that's cool. Granted, that fan don't work, but I mean, it's a cheap fan, or I can replace the fans easy enough. And
It's true.
in the future, like I said, now that my warranty is finished, I'll actually look into possibly doing a custom water loop. I've never done that before, so I'm really curious. But it's a matter of trying, now I get to do case shopping, and I'll probably get a new power unit, because my current power unit's good for what it is, but if I want to run a pump and some stuff, I want a little more overhead just to be on the safe side. uh yeah, so it's that whole window shopping bit until I figure out what I want and how I'm going to set it up. So that'll be interesting. That's my new long term goal. I figure it's not probably going to get done until maybe the end of summer at this rate.
Oh man, yeah. If it just, I, I hope one day we will be through this, be out of the wilderness in terms of GPUs, as I've complained about many times. But yeah, hopefully things will get better before too long.
Yeah. So I didn't get to play any games until just a few days ago. So I'll talk when that time comes. I'll bring up the game I've been playing. But yeah, how about you, man? How's your time been?
Pretty good. I've been really busy. I have been playing some games, um, a couple here and there. I'm going to talk about one, but I have been playing several others. And so I actually was thinking about what's going to come out in February. Um, um, Originally, I mean, I'm still excited about Elden Ring, and I still want to play King of Fighters 15, but I forgot that Sifu is coming out early in the month on the 8th. So I think I'm going to switch my priority to Sifu first, and then Elden Ring, and I might just have to put King of Fighters off until later. But I don't know. Then again, I might buy all three. I don't know, right away. But mostly it's just a matter of time. It's just like I don't have time to put into those games. But one thing I didn't know about Sifu is that it's going to be $40.
Okay.
Not
I don't think I knew the price point on it. Okay.
not 60. So when I saw that, I was like, oh shit. I was like, okay, that tells me one, that it's cheaper, so that's nice. But two, that it's going to be probably a little bit shorter of a game. If they don't feel like they can charge 60 for it, then it's probably going to be a little bit more manageable. So I was like, okay, so if it's like a 20-hour game instead of a 40-hour game, just kind of cutting straight through it, then yeah, I was like, okay, I could be enticed to play that. And it's also early in the month. The other two games are later in the month, so it was going to be hard to fill that. Well, it wasn't going to be hard to fill that time, but it's going to be hard to fill that time with newer games. So I'm going to go for that. But besides that, yeah, like, oh, did I tell you? Oh, I guess I didn't tell you this, but not this past Monday, but the Monday before, my battery in my truck died in the morning. So I got up, and it was real fun. It was real fun because I drove. So I live in an apartment complex, and our mailboxes are a little bit further away. So I got up in the morning, got in my truck, on time for work and everything, and I drove over to the mailbox, turned the car off, got the mail, got back in the car, gung gung gung, or click click click, click click click, and and I was like, you got to be kidding me! I just turned this on, and that's bad. Like that's like not great. But what's bad is that because I'm a piece of shit and I was only going to be there for a second, I parked catty cornered in two spots because I was still in a hurry. And so the truck is taking up two spots, and I was like, damn it, because now I have to be afraid of leaving it to go fix this, to go get a new battery or whatever. I have to be afraid of leaving it because I'm technically illegally parked, and somebody in the park, some security person in the park, can come by and go, hey, you're illegally parked, we're going to tow you. So I weighed my options.
So it's karma is what I hear. Okay.
I suppose, yeah, I guess it's karma, even though, there's nothing to be karmically worried about. But anyway,
You're a piece of shit, and the world hates you. That's all. I mean,
it must
it's
be.
like you like to cough and breathe on people in the theater, and then you feel ill afterwards. It's like, yeah, this is every
That was a
episode you
one
have
day
something that's
thing.
like
It
I'm
must
a piece
be.
of shit, and now the world's biting me for it. That's good.
I guess that's it. I can't argue with your logic, honestly.
Park, and then your car's like, no, man, this is wrong. I'm just gonna end it.
But it's so dumb. It's like, why couldn't it just, if it had just done that when I was in my parking spot, as I was about to leave, but no, it had to do it at the worst possible time. So I got a notebook, and I wrote, battery died, and then I wrote my phone number, and then I put it in the window. So I was like, well, if anybody comes by, at least they might see this. But So I got an Uber, got to the AutoZone, got a battery, came back, um, put it in. Hope because I was pretty sure that was the problem, but I wasn't 100% sure. But I finally got back and put it in, and it worked. And I was like, oh, thank God. Oh man,
So did you get the old battery tested when you went to, or was it just a bad battery, or was it the bad like alternator? Was it the
it's
charge?
old. It's just an old battery. I think it's a two. I think it was a 2 year battery, and I was running, and it was like 2 or 3 months past warranty. Um, but I didn't know what the battery was whenever, or I don't know what type of battery it was whenever I bought the truck because I bought it used, and it was like still a year away, and I just forgot about it. But it was giving me trouble for the past few weeks, like not like trouble, but where it was like it's not starting up as easily, and I was like, it's probably just because it's cold. Um, but it was because his battery was dying. So
Yeah.
anyway, but I got that figured out, and it was it was a big pain, but I have a good I have a good job, and they're cool with it. I have a coworker that comes in like an hour late, like every day. I think he stays late too, but it's anyway. It's just kind of that sort of place. But yeah, so that's kind of what's been going on with me. It's otherwise it's been okay, I guess. Oh, I'm trying to
Yeah.
move actually, and so man, I've been looking for a new apartment, and apartments in Austin are quite expensive. Um, so I went to a place today to to tour it. I got there, I had an appointment for 2 o'clock. Got there, not the door was locked, and I was like, okay. Finally, this janitor guy comes out and says, "Hey, so they're gone right now. So, um, like, you're just not gonna be able to see them." And I was like, "I have an appointment for 2 o'clock," and he was like, "Yeah, they're gone." I was like, "No, I have an appointment for 2 o'clock," and they was like, "Oh, okay, let me call him." So then he goes back in, then comes back out and says, "She had a family emergency. Can you come back at like 3?" And I was like, "Yeah, fine." And so I go take a nap in my truck for like 30 minutes, come back at 3, walk in, the lady's there, and I'm like, "Hey, I'm here to tour an apartment." And she's like, "I have a 1 bedroom to tour." And I was like, "Well, I'm looking for a 2 bedroom." Um, I was like the thing says 2 bedroom, and she's like, "No, I only have a 1 bedroom to show." And I was like, "Fine, fine, we'll look at it." And it's not a great, it's not great, it's not it's not great, but I don't know. I have a bunch of other tours that I'm gonna try to set up and try to go
I,
look.
Man, I would. Whenever you have a management who does stuff like that,
Yeah,
you
it's
know
not a
that
good
when you
sign.
really need help, when you're there, they're not going to help you at all. So that's the way I look at it, for sure. I
Yeah,
would avoid that.
yeah, like and the whole place is the whole apartment complex over there is it's not as nice as the one I live in now. It's an older place, and it's more run down, and they don't have the same amenities and facilities. So yeah, but I don't know. I'm gonna have to pay more, a lot more than what I'm paying now, and I'm gonna have to for the same kind of place. But I've got to move because I'm like 25 miles from work, so I'm gonna move. And the place I was looking at, it's like 2 miles from work, so I'm gonna save like $100 a month minimum on gas alone, and maybe more. And it's also closer to a lot more cool stuff as well, so that's nice. But just those woes, the woes of apartment life. I have until March 18th to be out of here. That's when the lease ends here. But I want to move in somewhere March, like early March, so I have time to slowly, move stuff, a little bit at a time. But yeah, anyway, that's what's going on with me.
Well, if it makes you feel any better, I think I remember telling you this. Yeah, so I ended up getting a puncture in my car tire, and
Yeah.
it wasn't just a simple one. That thing came through the top. on the side, and then went straight through out the side corner. I'm like, all right, well, there you go. I'm gonna have to replace not only that tire, but if you want to do it right, you should place at least the two on the axle. And if you want to do it really right, you do all four. And I'm like, I'm currently like 30,000. I just hit over 30,000 miles on that car, and those are 60,000 mile tires. So I'm like, well, I'm either gonna have two brand new tires and then two literally half worn ones, and I'm gonna have to replace those in a couple of years. I'm like, yeah, I'm just gonna end up replacing all four, and that's gonna be like, I don't know, $1,200-$1,500 or something like that. I'm like, oh, well, that's what savings are for, right?
Yeah.
Kids don't need to go to college yet.
College is going to be free by the time they get there.
Yeah. Well, it's one of those things that if I plan it right, I'll do the thing that I wish I would have done, or I wish I had anything for college personally for myself. But um, my mother wanted to do the stock market, and my dad's like, "Don't do it," and she's like, "No, I'm going to do it. All my friends are making money in it." He's like,
Oh.
"It's like it's going to go down. Like it's the bubble's going to burst. It's going to happen. Like all the signs show it." She said, "No, my friends made money. I'm going to do it." It's like, and if you don't want to, I'm going to take the money and do it myself. He's like, "Fine, then we're going to do it with a calculated risk." And that calculated risk was the money that they had for me for college.
Oh, gosh.
And like so that they like my mom's like, when we made that money back, I'm like, yeah, you made that money back like a decade after.
After I would,
But yeah,
yeah, I mean, like, yeah, basically a savings account with how long it took.
it was pretty rough. So that's why I was like, I never had assistance in that front. But I'll do like if my kids, I hope they should be smarter than me.
It should
My
be.
wife will see to that. So they'll be if they can be book smart enough to get themselves at least a partial ride. Any money that they can save that they don't use out of the college fund that I'm putting aside for them, I'll let them use on like getting a car during college or getting just helping them out in actual day-to-day life, furnishing an apartment or something, because that money will still be there for them, is the way I'm playing it. But if they need it for school, then it's there, but
Yeah.
hopefully they'll get some sort of partial scholarship or something.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
doubt,
like,
well, if they get a full ride, then sweet, but
I mean, that's always possible too. And like, if I mean, if they're not going to be like an engineer where you have to be at the same place for all 4 years or something similar to that, then community college is the way to go because it is so cheap. You get all the bull crap out of the way. Like if you're gonna be like a business major or something, you just go to a community college first for 2 years and then transfer into a big 4 year school, finish out your degree, save tons of money. It's not like the quintessential college experience, but it's definitely if it's between that and like a mountain of debt. I mean, as a parent, I'd be like, I'm putting my foot down, and you're doing it this way because
Well, you can at least go do the local. It may take a little longer to finish college, but if you were to do the couple years at a community college, knock out a lot of your general ed, and then if you're to then transfer into whatever, it's a good way to, if you don't get your school of choice,
yeah,
if you do a couple years and you do good at your community college, you can then transfer in, especially if it's part of the same like network, for like state programs or something. Then you might have to do 4 years of your actual major, but then you can essentially be a part-time student if you want,
yeah,
and then
that's true.
you don't have to have the worries about having to work a job and do your full-time schooling. You can, if it's part-time school and you just have to do those, the few mandatory credits, then you're fine. uh, that's what I know, a few people I know did, and it really does save. But then all of a sudden your 4 year, quote unquote, 4 year college becomes 6 years. But honestly, nowadays
It's a
4
lighter
years is
load.
usually five anyways.
Yeah, a lot of people do go 5, and it's a lighter load. And if you have, I mean, if you plan at all, and you're like, okay, do I want it to be 4 years? Do I really need it to be 4 years, or how is this going to work? If you really plan it out, then you can plan for that, and also just getting good grades, man. That's the key. Just getting good grades
Yeah,
so you can get
well, I
in.
can I can I can pull my Asian card and just like beat my children into being good students. You know, Tiger Mom that shit. Uh, I mean, my kids got it. My kids got a few more years before they can do before they have to start learning the piano. Uh,
Yeah, God, I mean they're not dexterous enough, but that never stopped Tiger Mother. Um,
I mean, you could do chopsticks. What do you only need this, right? You know, he's
yeah,
like, do. That's all you need, chopsticks, dude. So,
that's perfectly fine.
uh,
You can do it. You can handle it. Get in
yeah.
there.
So, all right. I mean, I'll just show him a YouTube video of some kid in China and be like, that kid's doing it. Why can't you? Um,
They might learn that way. A lot of kids learn a lot of stuff from the
yeah.
YouTube these days.
Well, all right. So yeah, outside of that, and me future planning my children's hatred towards me, uh, where I've been able to watch a few things over the last couple weeks, especially since my computer wasn't working. So I watched the entire series of Arcane on Netflix. So for those of you who
As
don't
did
know,
I.
uh, yeah, Arcane is the uh, League of Legends animated series, and I'm not sure how connected to the actual lore is on anything. But
I can answer
so
some of that.
if it's canonical, I can kind of see it being canonical to a certain extent. But essentially, it's just an excuse to throw Jinx up as their poster girl, which she always has been since from everything I've ever seen. I mean, they did the old music video with her in it, um,
She was one of
which
the
I remember.
first. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember just watching this music video, being like, "Wow, I didn't know League of Legends." I'm like, "This seems like a really good student project," and I'm like, "Oh wait, never mind. It's." I later found out this is actually part of League of Legends. All right, that makes more sense now. Um, so, did you're the actual one who got me into League of Legends long ago. So
I tried. It didn't really work very well. I didn't realize.
I'm
I
bad.
I remember when I showed you that. And I was like, okay, let's like because I really wanted somebody that I could play with, um, you know, pretty regularly. But like when I was showing you, I was like, I didn't realize how much time you have to put into this game before you're the least iota of competent, and it's really weird. It's a weird game. It's really boring until you're like, oh, I kind of get it, and then you're just addicted, and then you're like, I have to stop. But yeah, like I used to play League of Legends, played it for like a year, 2 years, somewhere in there. Pretty solidly. Got to silver. So wasn't really ever very good, but I did enjoy a lot of the art and some of the lore. When I first started playing was like 2014 or so, and they had just did this really big uh what do you call it? Uh
Balance patch
well,
or
they do brown
update?
balances all the time, but this was a retcon. They just did a big
Oh, okay.
retcon, and so they retconned a bunch of stuff and changed a bunch of lore around, and they had this really nice like essay post of where they were saying we're kind of doing this to kind of prepare for the future and stuff like that. And so whenever Arcane, this show came out, um, that I heard that they'd been working on it for about 6 years, and I was like, oh, okay. So I was like, so that would have been about 2014, 2015, whenever they did that big retcon. And then this comes out. I was like, okay, so they've been working on this since the retcon. I think that's kind of the me putting two and two together there, but it kind of shows because this show is really really well made, and kind of just about because you're asking about the lore. If you play League of Legends, you recognize a lot of the characters immediately because the main characters are some of the oldest characters.
I was
Jace.
say the character. Yeah, I was saying the characters were obvious, but I just want to know like the dynamic of it because for I guess before we get into the character models and stuff or the individually, I was going to quick give a lowdown on the series as a whole,
Well,
just a synopsis. So it's essentially
okay.
Arcane is the setting is there's you have like the upper town, which is all like like the rich and wealthy, high class society, and then you have to go to a bridge and then go down to the lower lanes, as they call it, and that is where like the slums are. And So it's a class. The whole concept is it's like the warring classes essentially, the haves and have-nots, and it's that is the gist of like the bare bones of what it's going on. So some and uh incidents happen, things ensue, technology advances, and people fight each other. That's legitimately it. But uh, of course, they end up the way they bring into some of the some of the phrasing terms. Like I said, they call multiple
Uh-oh. Hang on.
times.
Hey, can you say that again? I think I lost you for a second.
Oh, okay, yeah. They're like, they end up saying like, sometimes the way they bring in their terms, like we got to protect the lanes. Like, well, the lanes, like if you never played, it sounds really odd when you say it just by itself because they never refer to the lower area as, you know, the lanes. So like, oh, but I played a little bit of it. So I get what they're saying now. Uh,
When did they
but
say that?
oh, the 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 father figure, the bartender dude.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
yeah. The
Okay, yeah.
Doomfist, but Doomfist is from Overwatch, so I don't know what his name is in League of Legends because I forgot it. Um, but yeah, he ends up he mentioned it a couple times about the lanes, and I'm like, okay, that makes like I understand the term, and I find it funny that you used it. And so I was waiting for someone to bring in the jungle at one point, but no one ever talked about the jungle, which I was disappointed.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really catch that about the lanes. Cuz like the lane stuff is sort of a gimmick of the game, but they don't like but like top lane, middle lane and bot lane are specific things, and I mean, I guess they could have worked it in, but I don't know. I like past those first couple episodes, I don't remember them ever saying it, you know, past that. So it didn't really stick out to me, I guess. But I mean, as
I
far
can't remember what episodes they were in because I ended up binge watching most of it in like a
yeah.
day. I think I finished it in like 2 days. The art was fucking amazing. It was really good.
Yeah, I mean, like, there's a lot of interesting stuff about this. Like, it seems the animation seems like some kind of rotoscoping going on because it's really detailed in a way that an artist would. It would be very expensive to make tiny, minor, minute, like flip of the hand details, and they don't usually do that. And the characters kind of look a little. They walk a little bit too real, honestly. Um, so so I think it's some kind of a rotoscoping, but it looks really really good. A lot of it where it is purposefully animated is really really awesome. Um, yeah, I mean, like I actually kind of found this show sort of boring early on. I was really bored by it in the first couple episodes, third episode. And then after that, I kind of figured out what I was watching and I started to enjoy it a lot more. And I started to watch it like a live action show because it's slowly paced like that. When I was watching it like an anime at the beginning, I was like, this kind of sucks as far as like pacing and stuff goes. But once I started watching it like a live action, I was like, okay, this makes more sense. And then when the when there's like fight scenes and stuff, that's where they really make big good use of the animation because they can go really hard on the fight scenes and go kind of Super Saiyan, and it still feels sort of real because they've grounded everything else in reality, but they can jack it up and make the fight scenes really cool, which I think they did a pretty good job of, honestly.
Yeah, they did a good job with animating like explosions and smoke effects. Things like that that are generally pretty difficult to do. And yeah, you're right. Though I don't know how much rotoscoping would be done because, well, just because their character models are almost a caricature or something like that because they're very lanky and very uh, oddly proportioned in a lot of ways.
Mm.
It's very stylized. So like I said, I generally really like the animation. I kind of felt the other opposite way though. It's like I was interested in the beginning, and then as it went on, I'm like, I kind of checked out, and that's why I was just like, all right,
That's
I'm
weird.
just in it to finish it at this point. I no longer care, and I was just like, it had me intrigued in the beginning. I wasn't necessarily always like, I was just like, I'm curious how they're gonna do this. This is neat, huh? Okay, I see the points they're making, and like I hear the terms that they're using. That's funny. And then as it progressed, I'm like, their character development, character motivations. I'm like, nah, you guys suck. Like without it, I was like, I no longer care, and I'm just gonna see how it ends.
Like
And
why do you
yeah,
think that? Because I was like because I was like I don't really care about these kids. I mean, I know the characters, I know who they're going to be, and I don't really care about them as kids. But I thought it set it up really well for why, Jinx became the way that she did, and kind of the relationships that they ended up having. I was kind of like, I wonder how they're going to get to that point. Um, but I thought they did a really good job of bringing them forward into what they are in the game. Um, so I'm,
yeah, but Jinx, I like maybe because I just don't care about her as the poster child for League of Legends, but the way they set her up in this, I guess slight spoilers for like the first handful of episodes. Um, after she's triggered essentially, and then she's so easily like she accidentally murders a bunch of people. Uh, and it's like, and so then afterwards she like her quote unquote sister is like upset with her and walks away, and then the moment the bad guy comes around, instead of just wasting her, he embraces her, and she's like immediately she's like, my new family member, boom, instantly, like no second thoughts to it. And
that's
then the
fair.
rest
Yeah.
of the time with her, she's like, I'm unstable, and I'm like, yeah, I just don't care.
Well, I mean,
It reminds me of that Japanese archetype of anytime you see a Japanese story where there's like a battle royale or some sort of like kids murdering each other, there's always that one character who's just psychotic for psychotic's sake, like, I'm just gonna kill you, and I'm unpredictable. Look at my crazy eye. It's just kind of that's the situation, and she's just like, I don't know. For those of you who don't know, or if you've played Borderlands, think Tiny Tina, but not funny and just more bigger and murder hungry. I guess she's
hmm.
just very schizophrenic. Uh,
Yeah, I think they were trying to meet the character that is in the game, and they were having trouble to get to that point. Um, so yeah, like she does that part. I did kind of feel the same way. It's like, okay, uh, she sort of forgets her family at that point early on, and then gets into like the bad, like in with the bad people. And so they're
oh,
sort of like,
question.
what?
The guy who raises her, is he an active member of League of
I
Legends?
haven't played League of Legends in 3 or 4 years. And they add new characters every couple months. So they could have added him and their dad and like the love
I was
interest
wondering
for
if they've ever
Jace.
retired people. That's why, because I was curious. It's like, oh, I'm like, especially since you were talking about that whole retconning things, a handful of years ago. I'm like, okay, that might make sense. If they ever retired old members, then I can kind of see this old guard being switched to a newer, quote unquote, newer guard in the story. I can see maybe that reflecting the actual game.
I don't think that they've retired anybody yet. Like the way the game kind of deals with that is just by nerfing characters and buffing characters, and like there's only like 15 champions. So it's a 5v5, and there's only like 15 champions that are viable, and whenever they play, 5 of them get banned, or the top 5 are always banned, and then they have a few more bans than that. So they don't really ever get to play with S tier champions. They only ever get to play with like A tier champions. Anyway, that's kind of a tangent, but they I don't think that they've ever removed any champions yet. So um,
Okay.
yeah, that's not been retired or anything like that.
Because like I said, there was a handful of people in that series that could have easily been like old guard. I figured small Professor Man was still active,
Heimerdinger,
but
yeah.
Yeah, but both of the parents, parental figures, and even the old scientists, I'm like, all three of those could easily have been like old members or something, like from a, even a prior, if it was something like if there was a sequel number, I'm like, oh, that could have been from a previous number. I can kind of see that, or a beta version. Um, but yeah, that's why I was just curious. It was,
Yeah.
the series itself,
Well,
it's all right, you
like
know.
I was just gonna say that like Jace is kind of one of the other main characters, and it's like, okay, so I know Jace is, um, and then they introduce kind of his science partner, as it goes on, and then they don't really say his name, and then finally introduces himself. And he's like, oh, like he's like, he's like, my name is Victor, and then you go, oh shit, okay, because like Victor is definitely on the opposite side, I guess, of what Jace is in the game, which is in the future of this show. So there's kind of little nice little moments like that where it's like, and then I was pretty sure like there's a little black kid in it, and I was like, that is probably Echo because that kid is black and has white hair, and that's Echo. But yeah, like it's it's a good series. It's a good series so far. I think I'm definitely looking forward to season 2.
Yeah, they completely left a course cliffhanger open, like ending there. But I would actually prefer if they just never made another part and just left it like that. I'm like, okay, that's cool, because it was complete, like, just bad cliffhanger. I'm like, all right, I see what you're doing there. And yeah, just, they should just have the next one just be a trailer, just one little trailer, and be like, play our game, spend your life here.
I mean, I think it's a pretty good. I think it's a pretty good attempt at making something that that's not just an advertisement for the game. Like if you told me, 2 years ago, hey, there's a League of Legends show that's going to be coming out. What do you think it's going to be like? And I'd probably would have said, well, it'll probably be pretty good, but ultimately it'll just be an ad for the game. And this I feel like pretty uh is pretty much them is definitely them trying to make something that's more like art. Um, I know that the Rotten Tomatoes score was super high on this. It was like at 100% for a long time. I don't know what it is now, but um, a lot of critics that I follow were saying this is really good. Uh, so depending on what you're into, I think it's definitely worth checking out if you have Netflix. So yeah,
Rotten Tomatoes still has the average as 100 on the actual, like, their side. The audience, or whatever, the score is 96%. Um, though I never understand how Rotten Tomatoes does this thing, because it's the full tomato, but it's not fresh, So I'm not really sure.
I've read a little bit about it, and I don't remember all of that I've read. I do remember hearing. I think there's a Stuff You Should Know episode that I didn't listen to, but someone told me about, and they basically kind of break down that Rotten Tomatoes is it's a lie. Like it's like it's there. That they finagle it. Marvel has been finagling the Rotten Tomatoes scores for a long time. DC just started to do that, especially like with the most recent Wonder Woman, the Wonder Woman 84. Like it came out and it was like getting really high scores. It was in the high 80s or something like that. And then a few weeks after its release, or right as it released, that's when all the bad scores started to come out, and it dropped down to the mid 60s or something. So what they do is they front load it, and they give the movie to people that they're pretty dang sure are gonna like it. And then those people come back with their scores, and they're like, "Oh, look at all these awesome scores on Rotten Tomatoes." And then when everyone gets to see it, then they're like, "Hang on a minute, this movie sucks." Um, so they kind of play with it that way. So that is a testament to this show kind of keeping a pretty high score, even among the audiences, for this long. People seem to like it. But that's also the other thing about Rotten Tomatoes. Is like if you could make a movie that is verifiably like a 6 out of 10. And it would have 100% like Rotten Tomatoes score because everybody would be like, well, it's more good than it is bad, so it's good. And then it would have like 100% score, you know. So that's sort of the downside of that.
Well, I do like the League of Legends pop star song that's in Beat Saber. That's a pretty fun one. It's one of those things that I also, when you go down a YouTube rabbit hole, you find a bunch of stuff. You're like, and I'm like, what the hell is this? I'm like, this looks pretty good for like this being this animated thing. I'm like, I hate K-pop, but at the same time, this is actually done really well. And then later on, I'm like, oh, it's a legit thing, and oh, it's League of Legends. Of course it is. Okay, that makes sense. And then years later, it became a Beat Saber song, and it's actually a pretty it's pretty fun to play. They mimic some of the Beat Saber movements to the moves in the actual song, which is I found funny as hell. And it's actually a good song for Beat Saber. I dig that. So
Yeah,
nothing else, at least provided that.
yeah. I mean, like when I was playing years ago, like 2015, 2016, somewhere in there. No, probably like 2013, 2014, I guess. They released this techno album for one of the characters, and it was pretty good stuff. I mean, it wasn't gonna break your world, but it was like, dang, this is some pretty good tunes for a dang video game. And they also had a metal album that they released along with character skins for this metal album. What was the I think a metal band that they made up was called Pentakill, which is the killing all five of the other team members. So it kind of had a
That's good.
yeah,
Okay.
it's like the best thing you could possibly do is get a pentakill, like one character killing everybody on the other team. Um, but like they had that as an album, and they had like I don't know 5 or 10 songs somewhere in there,
Yep,
and
you're right about Pentakill. Yeah.
they were it was like I remember listening to it, and I was like, I mean, I like metal, I'm not crazy into it, but I was like, dang, this is pretty good metal. Um, so they like League of Legends, Riot. You have to hand it to them that they really try hard to create a aesthetic of the whole world. You know, they're not just like, hey, play our game and whatever. They kind of branch out, and they try to make a pretty cool thing out of being a fan of League of Legends. It's just too much. It's just too much to like. That's finally why I fell off of it, because I was like, well, I can be pretty shit at League of Legends, and that's saying something. That's I can be pretty shit at it, or I can play other games. Because otherwise, you'll just never have any. I mean, even then, you're only winning half your games, so it's kind of a thing I just had to move on from. But yeah,
Yeah. All right. Well, that's enough of that one for sure. But it's give it a shot if you're interested in League of Legends. It's most definitely worth the watch if you have Netflix.
Arcane's good.
So
Arcane's good.
yeah. So the other thing I've been watching, it just came out today, in fact. So today, we're Friday the 28th. Uh, we're Vox Machina. So Critical Role finally released the first 3 episodes of their animated series, and that was on Prime. So I got to see the first 2 episodes of that actually. Uh, and I don't actually watch a lot of Critical Role. I tried listening to their podcast, and it's one of those things that I think it has to be a visual thing. I just can't get into listening to people play any pen and paper like D&D style game. I just can't do it. If I just watching them, I've watched a few clips here and there. I'm like, oh yeah, that's really funny, and they're a really good group. They're a Critical Role, but it's complete for me. It has to be a visual thing. So I just couldn't listen to their stuff. So a while back, they did the crowdfunding kickstart for this, and they completely blew it out of the water. They did, yeah, they crushed the entire like all their goals for the most part, and they had to make more up if I remember correctly. So yeah, the first 3 episodes released, and it's so far it's looking really good. Kind of has that same, if it's not the same exact art team, it's very close to. Uh, something along the lines of Voltron.
Oh, okay.
If you've seen, also like the adjacent to like Avatar, the Last Airbender slash Korra. So but it's very much that American anime style, and it looks really good. It suits them really well. Uh, you know, the cast is there. If anyone who doesn't know who Critical Role is, it's a bunch of actors and mostly voice actors who do who play Dungeons and Dragons together. They're on the internet. You can watch them as they're really funny. They voice, obviously they play their own characters with their own unique voices. They give them unique traits, and they do stupid shit all the time. And they're not afraid to. It's a D&D type game where the DM is not afraid to kill the party. So every now and then someone will die, and you'll be like, "Oh man, did not see that coming." So that's the short the short gist of it, and I'd recommend giving it a shot if you like the animation style. If you like any of the look up Critical Role. Matt Mercer is the one who he's still, I think he's the DM, but he's one of the biggest voices there. But they're all super, there's just so many of them. They're super popular, and yeah, it's pretty good so far. I'm liking it a lot. It's only watched the first 2 episodes. They're half hour each, and I think it's releasing every Friday. I'm not sure how many episodes they're releasing each Friday. If it's just going to be one additional, or it's going to be like 3 at a time. I hope it's more than one, because I don't know. It's I like to, I just came out today and I already watched 2 out of the 3. So
Yeah. Yeah. So I really like Critical Role. I wouldn't say I love it because I don't commit that much time to it, but I got into it kind of late. I only got into Dungeons and Dragons in the past like 2 years or so, 3 years, I guess, getting close to. And so I started to watch Critical Role, and that's what kind of led me um, to want to go be a dungeon master, or to kind of understand like how the game like really works. So it's really cool for that aspect. But I watched like 30 something episodes of the season of campaign 2. Campaign 3 just started up, and I've been trying to watch that. Um, and I just can't keep up with it. I mean, 3 hours a week. It's like 3 hours or more per week. Is just so much. Like you were saying, it's really hard to listen to. What I will do with it is I will have it on my phone, on my YouTube app, and I'll try to listen to it at work. So I'll be doing my stuff, listening to it, fiddling around with my spreadsheets, and then if they do something, or if I can hear that they're doing something that's visual, I'll grab my phone up and just look at it for like the 3 seconds, and then I can usually, okay, like I understand what's going on, and then I put it back down. Or if it's a funny moment that's visual, then I'll do that, and that's probably the best way to watch it, or to experience it if you're gonna try to just listen to it. But I do agree with you, like the best way to experience it is to sit down and actually watch it. You get so much more out of it. You get so much more out of like their interplay with each other, and their little jokes that are kind of silently done and stuff like that. So yeah, like it's definitely a tricky show to watch. I was actually looking forward to watching Vox Machina as an animated show. I heard about it coming out a few months ago, but lost track of it. So I'm glad you reminded me that it's out now. But so I will be watching that. It's exciting. I did read a little bit of a news snippet that, or a headline, that Amazon was the only network that they pitched it to that wanted it to be for adults. So I don't really know much about the show going in. I know that the campaigns, from what I've seen, they don't go out of their way to be adult, but they do jump onto adult themes pretty often. So it's
I'm
good.
glad you brought this up, actually, because for those who would be interested in watching it, but then at the same time, so when they mean adult, at least so far, it's essentially the very first opening bit. It's granted you have light gore, like monster murdering people and them turning into mush, like a bloody mess. So it's not really like super body horror, but it is just that kind of flagrant like dismemberment and stuff. So for those of you who are younger, who like at home and your parents maybe not like, what the hell are you watching? But also they swear quite a bit, comically so. But like I don't know, it almost feels really out of place. Just especially since you're like you're the time period, you're high fantasy, and then you guys are like fuck, like all the time. So
Yeah.
it felt a little weird, and as often as they did it, I'm like, okay, I'm not sure how much I actually care about this part. And the person who's playing, like, is it the halfling, I think, or something like that. Gnome, it's a gnome, that's right. The he's a bard, but he's in there like trying to bed someone, and so then you see the other person topless, the female.
Oh
So
wow.
it's not very long, it's just there. So then then they cut away into a bar fight, come back into it, and then he's like, the bartender's like, what are you doing to my daughter? And then it's like, then his head pops up from underneath the blankets. He's like, you don't want to know, and then she pushes his head back down underneath the blankets. So
Okay.
it's very suggestive that way. So it's the first episode is a little, or at least the first bit is just, it feels a little too cartoony, I guess. It feels like you're as weird as it is, it's like it's more slapstick, I guess, than
uh
at least the opening bit. It's supposed to introduce you to this is the band of people who uh they're they don't care. They're like they're not like this noble group of people doing their thing. No, they're all just essentially selfish rogues who are just doing like they're and they just happen to be together in a party. Essentially everyone's so but it's the by the end of the first episode and the second episode, it's decent. I'm curious, and I did look it up real quick. So what happens is, on Fridays, so the next one's February 4th, then the 11th, and then the 18th. They're going to release 3 episodes at a time, and that'll be the first season, 12 episodes.
okay, so it's gonna come out pretty quick then.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's nicer to be paced out like this, opposed to doing the Netflix thing and just showing the entire season all at once. Because it lets you like gestate a little bit. Because if you binge watch something all at once, you kind of forget where one thing starts and the other ends, and it's just kind of blurry. But if gives you at least a little bit breathing room, so then you can kind of remember the segments a little bit better, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I like the way that Netflix does it because I almost never have time to literally watch 10 hours of a show straight, or even a third of that at a time. So I usually, I mean, I don't even watch whole episodes nowadays. Like, I'll watch like 15 minutes of a show while I eat over like the course of 5 days. So it takes me like, it takes me like 2 weeks to finish a show sometimes, to finish a season sometimes. So I
Yeah.
actually pace it out myself that way. So I definitely see your point, but I mean, to me, I don't know. I just like, it's like, just give it to me all at once. I know you have it. Just give it to me all at once and let me base it out the way I want. But
Well, see, if it's an existing show, I can see just dumping it all at once. But if it's something that's new, like that's being produced, uh, I don't see a reason why it can't be on a production cycle. I mean, it does help with the fact that, if you have a lazy evening and you end up watching, if it's a half-hour show, you end up watching like 10 episodes, just because between like dinner and bedtime, you've just happened to the last 5 hours just left it on, let it go, and you just keep on watching it. I'm like, it's hard to retain exactly everything that's happened. So that's one of the things you lose when you binge watch certain things. And I know other people who've done like when they wanted to watch, like we missed X Files. We never watched X Files, so we're gonna watch X Files one episode a week, um, for the entire for the entire series. I'm like that. Like it gives you it's the one day a week. Um, it'll give us something to look forward to on that specific day. We'll make time to put aside just for that, and it's kind of like a quality time thing. Like we'll watch that show, and then when that series is done, we'll do another show. And I'm like, that's neat. I mean, do you do the thing like and then I joke, I'm like, do you do the thing where you have to watch it the same time and same day that it aired? Um, you know, and
That's
they're like,
hardcore.
we tried that. I'm like, well, what happens when it went from the good, like Tuesday night slot to like it got bumped to like a Friday night slot? You know, it's
Yeah.
like, do you change it then? You're like, no, we just keep it the same.
Yeah, I mean, like those shows were kind of, I mean, those shows were built for you to not catch every single episode because it's like, I mean, back then, you might be doing something on Monday night or Thursday night or whatever when they're airing. So it's like, that's why Monster of the Week sort of worked a bit more back then. You kind of had an idea of what was going on, and then the last two episodes, or especially the very last episode of the season, where they're advertising it, and you're like, oh, I'm going to make sure I'm there for that because I kind of been following along with, whatever overarching things going on. I'll make sure to be there. But like nowadays, it's like you have it on demand, so they can uh, make the whole thing an overarching story a lot easier, and it's easier to follow.
Yeah, though I do admit that having things, being able to binge watch certain things makes certain shows with that are slogs, like you can skip over that middle bad section or something like that, and get over that weird hump, and you're like, okay, now we're on the good stuff again. Because being able to watch certain movies that way too is that when you want to watch a new series or the latest of a movie, like, okay, well, if you do that sick thing like I do and watch the entire Marvel franchise before you watch, because I missed the last couple Marvel movies, then I think it was before the not the most current Spider-Man, but the one before that. Like I
Mm,
hadn't seen that. I hadn't seen Captain Marvel, and I hadn't seen the last Avengers movie actually. So like we had missed a lot. So we're like, all right, we got Disney Plus, and we have it all in the 4K. I almost blew through my data cap in 1 month.
cool.
Because we're watching streaming all this 4K movie plus our normal internet usage. But yeah, we watched it all, and we're like, that's the best way to watch. Iron Man 2, Thor 1 and 2. Some of those meh movies. You're like, yeah, you just got to burn through those real quick. Then you got. But when it comes to something like I don't know, certain shows are more well written, that have an actual nice story, the continuous story between episode to episode. But when you're right with a monster movie, you kind of hit and miss. You can, Supernatural is a good one for that.
Yeah,
Like you don't have to watch every episode. Only certain episodes will have um key points in which you have to really focus on, and then you can always just watch on that show in particular. We watch the very beginning, and they usually have some sort of intro like previously on, and then
yeah,
they'll take the snippets like this one's about a certain monster. Well, here's previously on, like these couple seasons ago you had these couple episodes with these monsters. Now like, oh, okay, I guess you're going to deal with a woogaroo because that's what these previews were about. Okay, so that's you don't need to catch all of them for that, and you can burn through those a little easier. But no,
it's true.
that's just my thought is I kind of like that they're doing small chunks. It makes it nicer just because you do get to sit around for a little bit longer. You're just not like, if it's like having a small snack. If you
I
watch one
think,
episode, you're like, that's just enough to piss me off and make me hungry,
yeah,
But now you get an hour and a half worth, 3 episodes. You're like, that I'm satisfied. I can wait another week.
yeah, I think you can release an hour-long show or 45-minute show one at a time because you kind of get enough. But yeah, that's really smart of them to take this 30-minute show and release three at a time. So it's like, you're getting, well, it's probably like a 20-minute. It's probably actually like 20 minutes, or is it a full 30?
It's 27.
Oh, wow, okay.
I thought so. Like, despite like, so what credits and opening intro, so
20,
25 probably or
25.
something.
Still, that's
So
pretty good. Okay, so you are getting you know, uh, like an hour 15 or so of straight, story that is pretty satisfying on a week to week basis. I think that's pretty smart of them to do that.
yeah, for sure. And then being broken up into smaller episodes makes it easier for me that I don't feel like I have, I do that with movies a lot. Have to stop midway through a movie to help, take care of the kids or something.
Yeah.
And so I don't get a full sit down movie experience anymore, period. And so that's just the way it rolls for me. So this works out real nice. But yeah, that's it. That's pretty much all I've really watched. But how about yourself? Anything particular?
So yeah, something I watched that I don't think you've had a chance to watch yet is I watched The Witcher season 2 on Netflix. Did you ever see the first Witcher season?
No, but over the holiday, I really ended up watching a lot of The Witcher, the fireplace edition,
Okay,
where Netflix just has the fireplace burning for The Witcher, and that's it.
that's pretty cool.
I just left it on as the background, and it's a really nice fireplace. Though I realized after the first half hour, I'm like, oh motherfucker, that's a gas fireplace. That's not even a wood burning one. Okay, you know.
They couldn't even spring for the wood burning fireplace on their damn Netflix show. Um, so I had a chance to watch this. So the first Witcher season was pretty good. I really enjoyed it. A lot of people didn't like it because it's very confusing. They don't tell you what's going on or when they are or where they are a lot of the times, and it kind of jumps back and forth in time. Um, I actually I did find that a little bit irksome, but I actually found it way more interesting because it kind of kept you like, what, like where, I don't know, it just kept you more engaged in and felt like you had to watch more of what's going on in order to grab that. So it wasn't quite so spoon fed to me. People didn't like it. I thought it was fine. This season, though, is much more um, in line with a typical show where they do a better job of telling you where they are. Of course, the story is more conducive to that. They're all in the same timeline now, or the same. Everything's going on at the same time now. So the last season ended with a big thing that happened, and some of the characters were all kind of trying to find each other through that season. And then this big thing happens. Lo and behold, the characters at the beginning of season 2 are now split up again, at least partially. And they kind of go their separate ways, but they also sort of start to try to find each other again. Um, and so that's kind of irritating because it's like, I don't know. They're just sort of, I don't like it when shows kind of backtrack that way, where they like a show I watched in college was, um, do you remember the show Glee about the Glee Club?
Yeah, I ended up watching Glee. I have really mixed feelings about that show.
So I don't
So
want to go. I don't want to go too far off into that. All I'll say is that like that first season of Glee was pretty awesome. It was stupid in the right ways, but it had a lot of heart, and the songs were great, and all this stuff. And I was like, whoa, it was just sort of this kind of drama of the week, this kind of dramedy weird stuff. And me and some of my college friends would get together and watch it. And then the second season came, and they had made all this progress in the first season. And then when the second season started, they're like, no, you're all still losers, even though they had accomplished, a bunch of stuff in the first season. And I was like, no, you can't just reset everything again. And after that, first couple episodes of the second season of that show, I was like, this is shit. And if I would check it back in on it every couple of years, and it was just jumping the shark left and right, and just made no sense. So The Witcher kind of did that a little bit, where they sort of do a little bit of a reset, but not entirely. Um, that they add in some storylines about some elves that I don't really care about. It should have been in it less, but in it nonetheless, and just kind of an introduction, and save it for next season, because then I would have been like, oh, okay, so we have a little bit of intro onto these elves, and season 3 I care about them more, and it'd be more fun to actually see where their story went. But they kind of ham-fisted, ramrodded that in. There's some new characters that they have pop in that are pretty interesting, but a lot are also not interesting and unnecessary. So it's a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And then kind of some news about the show is that there's some rumors that Henry Cavill, who plays Geralt. So he's like the linchpin of the whole show. There's some
They call him
rumors.
Geralt.
Geralt. I think they say Geralt.
I always say Geralt,
I think they say
but I
Geralt.
wasn't okay.
You're right. They say Geralt. But it's funnier to call him Geralt because then you can call him Jerry. But there's some rumors that Cavill would be leaving. I think that those have been disproven now or have not been followed up on or whatever. But if because they were, I know I saw a couple of articles where they were exploring, who else they would get to play Geralt, and I was like, fucking close this, close shop, because if it's you don't have Henry Cavill as Geralt, the show's over. I mean, I'm sure they would try to soldier on, but
How necessary is he? Because the few things I've seen him in, he has not done any favors to that. I've only seen him in 3 movies. Uh, Batman v Superman. I've seen him in the Man from Uncle. Um, and I also saw him in Mission Impossible. And all 3 of them, he's not. I mean, maybe the Man from Uncle is his best role. The rest of them, like is freaking bad.
yeah, I think that he's better in this than he was in like the Supermans and stuff like that. I've seen him in Superman, and I saw him in Fallout, which is a Mission Impossible movie, which I thought
Yeah,
he was fine in that. It was
that's why his
whatever.
face is all messed up in Superman, because when they did the edits, he was contracted to have that stupid mustache for Mission Impossible, and then they had to CG out that mustache. It's yeah, his role in Fallout or Mission Impossible Fallout was really bad. I don't know. That's why
I
I found him when
Yeah, okay.
I it's that's why when I found him, like people are like, well, it's him. I'm like, going to be Geralt. I'm like, I don't really like. I didn't feel one way or the other about it. I'm like, I don't think he's gonna be like.
Well, he
But
was. I
Geralt's
mean,
not really an emotional character,
I
so
was in that
he
like I was in that camp too, and he won me over because I was like, well, he doesn't look anything like Geralt, because Geralt. I mean, yeah, you can put the white hair on him and stuff like that, but as far as like their body type, it's totally different. Geralt is long and tall, and Cavill is tall, but he's built like a linebacker. He's not. It's not the same, but like he won me over because he's really into the games. Like, I mean, how often has a has an actor gone and read, or less often played the the source material, and he was like, oh yeah, I love the games, I've played them all, they're like great. So I was like, okay, I can tell that you're gonna give it your best shot, and I think he's good. I think he's good, and I just don't know who else that they're gonna get to play now to match to match the role. I mean, it's just, it would just be like, I don't think that you can just pop in another actor for the role. I think the actor starts to own that role, and it's just it's just bad to try to do that. I know like there's a lot of British shows that kind of work around with that to keep the show going, and I understand that.
it's The Witcher, not the Geralt. So you can always just switch to a different Witcher.
But
There's more than one.
it's not that, because the game is all about Geralt too. I mean, like that, like the other actors and stuff are good. They do fine, but I think that they should really
Or
try to keep Henry
the magic
Cavill.
hit him in the face, and now he looks like this person.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's yeah, okay. I if they do end up changing him, which I don't think that they will, but if they do end up changing him, I'll give it a chance, but I probably won't keep it going.
They
Um,
should do what like they did in Altered Carbon, and then just switch it with the main actor from who plays Falcon, the new Captain America. He's in so many things on Netflix. So
yeah,
I
he's
just
done a
figured
lot.
if they're gonna switch it out, they'll just switch it with him. He'll be in the new Witcher.
Yeah, it'd just be him. Like, the Witcher's black now. Yeah,
Yeah, well, I mean, granted, he switched skin suits in Altered Carbon, so it's the same person, different skin suit.
That
Just
one, the show kind of sets it up, for that. And it's like, okay, I'm bought into this, but it's the like, the slap, like you're slapped with a new actor. It's like, well, okay, I guess. I mean, if I really liked the other characters and the other actors, then I would put up with it. But they're just sort of like the lady that plays Yennefer is pretty good. Um, she's kind of the second star of the show. She's good, but she's not worth watching the show for. I don't think. So that's kind of the long and short of it. But I think they're probably
so
going
you
to keep
should
him.
get. Oh,
And
here
be
you go.
fine.
Just get John Leguizamo to play the new Witcher. Just have him swap out Geralt.
Oh gosh, John Leguizamo as the new Geralt. I mean, I guess that would work.
Just throw the white mop on his head, and there you go.
Yeah, he just yeah, I'm a Witcher. I'm gonna yeah, I'll do a thing or something. Yeah, you got it. I don't do a very good one, but it would be something like that.
I mean, he's already played the tall, lanky one. He played Luigi, so he's been in a video game movie before. He's been in
He
Spawn.
was.
I mean, dude, so he knows his way around a video game movie.
It's true. He's a master, some would say. Um, yeah, so that's all I have to say about The Witcher season two. It was all right. It was okay. It didn't have the same panache as the first season. I definitely think it's a sophomore slump, but we'll see what happens next year.
Okay. Well, so since I got my computer back, I was able to start playing a game, and I got around to playing the Record of Lodoss Wars, Deedlit in Wonder Labyrinth. So this one I had mentioned before, being a game that I wanted to be able to play last year, just never got around to it, and I had it on my short list of games I was planning on playing this year. And guess what? I went ahead and bought it. It was on sale on Steam, but actually, it's on Game Pass,
Oh
and
yeah.
yeah, so it's just straight up available on Game Pass. I went ahead and bought it anyways, just because I was excited enough for this game to actually come out, and I wanted to support the idea of like bringing out games like this and franchises that are slightly weird, because there hasn't been a lot of Record Lodoss Wars is like very dear to me as far as my childhood. It's I just really like the series a lot, and it's my introduction to high fantasy. But yeah, for this game, to let you guys know, it's a Metroidvania style game. It's done with a pixel art. So it's very well. I think it's very well animated for the main character you're playing as Deedlit High Elf, and the story is very chopped up. I guess it's like I haven't. I only know from the original anime and the TVA, so the first couple DVD releases long ago. And since then, they've come out with more novels, manga, and other material, other games. But pretty much none of that stuff ever came to the U.S. Some of the manga did. So I'm not really too familiar with any of the stuff outside of that. So it's they feed the story bits and pieces throughout. Um, so at the very end, it kind of ties it together. So even if you didn't know the series, you can kind of figure the main part out. But unfortunately, it does do a little bit better to at least have seen like a couple episodes of the anime, just so you're like, oh, all right, these are some of these other people. But it's honestly trivial. It's like it is the most non-story there is. You're mostly just playing it for uh, the gameplay. The Metroid level is where you're running around, you get new power ups, you go back and you unlock stuff. And as a whole, I like this game. It's outside of my biasness. I really like this game, but there's a couple flaws. I mean, I would say for those people who are used to a Metroidvania style game, and if you played something like what was it, Bloodstain, which is was it Igarashi? I can't remember the name of the director, but anyways, the same guy who did do the old Castlevania games. He like Bloodstain was one of one of the best versions of those that in a long while. I can't like compared to that. this doesn't hold up. But I also say the budget is completely different for those two games. And that's the thing is Bloodstain had a huge kickstart, and this game is like a handful of people. The credits are so darn short, it's crazy.
Oh wow.
So many, yeah, so many overlapping names. Like their name overlaps for like music and this and that. So it's a really small team, and the level designs fun, interesting. They what I'm essentially they have a couple neat mechanics and they stick through the entire game. It's there is some hidden stuff and some real exploration, but none of it is that difficult. There is one that's like, huh, I wouldn't like. I had to look up because I was like, I know there's a hidden room here. There has to be something hidden there, but I can't get to it. And then it's like, oh, you have to do this thing. I'm like, oh, that's dumb. There's no hint to that. Like I couldn't figure. Like I wouldn't have figured to do that thing there. But okay, whatever. And essentially, it's not that difficult of a game. I would say this is almost a Metroidvania light game. It's just because as far as the challenge, there was a couple enemies that were a little more challenging, but it's mostly the bosses. Once you figure out the boss pattern or maybe what they're weak against, you can kind of spam certain things to cheese your way through. And I was like, all right. Uh, but it was just, it's one of those things that it's a great game to play while listening to a podcast. Just you can multitask and kind of just zone out and enjoy your time doing something. You're completing a map, you're going through, and it's nice to have that completion vibe to it as well. I think, like I said, I think the sprites were animated pretty well. The jump animations and like just the dodge. They have the Alucard backstep, which is very anyone who knows it is just literally you jump backwards, but this almost feels like very similar. It's a rip off of it essentially. But yeah, they do the right type of power ups. You get a lot of weapons in the game. I haven't even dabbled with that many. You have a shop where you can buy more. I didn't think that was actually necessary. I bought a few in the beginning, then I realized, oh, I'll just in the next area I'll just find something that's better. So it's kind of almost a money's like a moot point. So like I said, I think I think it's a good game. I think it's all right, but it's just if you want something more really challenging, really like hardcore or anything like that, this is not for you. It does some of the same stuff in the end where if you want to try to trophy hunt or or get those achievements, you can grind to try to collect all the weapons or do this or that. And I'm like, that's never really been for me. I think I had this, I like the fact that I think I beat it in, I don't know, 7 hours maybe.
Okay.
7 8 hours. Yeah, it was a shorter game. I beat it over the course of like 3 or 4 game sessions, and um yeah, that's really all there was. I mean, I like the fact that it was a shorter game. It wasn't that expensive, 15 20 bucks or something like that. And like I said, since I bought it on sale, but if you have it on Game Pass, if you have Game Pass, I'd recommend just go ahead and give that a shot there. And yeah, that's there's not really much else to it. It provided me with some lore for the later stuff in Record of Lodoss, and I personally enjoyed that. But honestly, if you didn't have experience with it, yeah, it's showing here that I have 8.3 hours played. But I know some of it was idle because I had to leave it running while I quick helped out with my with one of my kids, and so just so I'd say 8 hours is giving it, and I 100%ed the map. So I went ahead and explored everything I could with that map. I didn't collect all the weapons though. I mean, when it comes to Steam games, I'm not really big on collecting Steam achievements because most of that you can just hack your way through.
Yeah.
For some reason, if it's a PlayStation game, I'll go through the effort more. My brain just is broken that way. Bloodstain, I went ahead and beat that game, and then because I had done like 90% of it or whatever, I'm like, I'll go ahead and grind these stupid enemies and to get the collecting trophies and stuff like that for it. And I'm like, yeah, this game sucks. The game's really good. Just the grinding, any of those farming things like that, it's terrible. And I did that to myself. I fully know it. I'm like,
Yeah.
you could stop at any moment. Yeah, but I'm so close to the platinum, I might as well just do it, right? I've already wasted like this much time just to get this far. What's a few extra hours? Um,
Oh, so do you think this game would be good on Switch?
Yes, it's actually on Switch. And it's totally I without having my PC, I haven't been able to play anything really, and then being stuck downstairs. It's also on the PlayStation, I believe, or it's supposed to be coming out. I know it's on the Japanese release. They should be on the PlayStation. But yeah, I thought like yeah, that would be really nice. Yeah, it doesn't use any, especially for the Switch. It doesn't use any real trigger buttons. Um, it doesn't use a whole lot of the shoulder buttons. To you use R1 or whatever, the front trigger button. To switch between two different magic styles. You have essentially wind and fire. So you're switching between those, and depending on the enemy's elementals and stuff like that, you can regain magic. It's a fun mechanic where if there's fire on the ground and you can switch to your fire elemental and go through it without taking damage. But not only are you not taking damage, you're absorbing um, that fire ability, and it's helping you increase your MP. So if you're low on MP, you don't have to take a potion or anything like that. You can just go ahead and start draining that fire. I mean, the fire's still there, but it's just that essentially giving you a free health boost. And it has some neat mechanics where it lets you switch between, because you can power up your fire and wind to level 3 essentially. So the more it's like a combo meter, something like that. You do enough damage, it boosts it up, and that makes it your base attacks stronger, because whatever element you have equipped to you will do that weapon will do that element damage. So if you have your sword, you'll see like wind wisps coming out from your sword a little bit, and if you're fighting an enemy that's strong against wind, then you can just switch to your fire ability, and you can spam your magic. And then if they happen to be using fire damage on you, then you just switch to your fire element when that fire hits you, and you're like, yeah, free MP. So I think because of that, if you know how to juggle your stuff real well, it becomes real easy. Um, so I was fighting against some major bosses, and then they'll do this sweeping like wind attack, and they're like, okay, cool. I'll just you equip the wind Ellie, and then you're just spamming your magic, and as your MP is going down, you're taking wind the wind damage, but you're not getting damaged, and then your MP is just automatically going up. And then if you do actually take damage, you can switch. Your number will go down for that elemental, but then you can switch to the one that you do have maxed, and then you're getting free. It literally just gives you free HP, as so long as you have your elemental at 3. So it's a real quick combination. It tells every time you're fighting different enemies, it'll tell you what they're strong against or what they're weak against. So it's like if they are, it's a 6-sided die. So there's like this person is a 6 to fire. That means they are impervious. Like so if you do any fire damage, it's just like a constant guard. So okay, you have to switch it up. But if there are a 1 to fire, that means you just do heavy damage. So one of the later bosses was like, they're weak against wood. Well, I technically don't have a wood magic, but you have a bow, and your bows use magic. And I happened to find a bow that fired that gave wood. It said didn't matter what magic you had equipped, it would do wood damage. So I just equipped that thing. I just started spamming from across the map. Every time he closed the distance, I would maneuver around him, run to the opposite side of the map, and start spamming it again. He threw down fire on the ground like napalm. So I switched to my fire Ellie, standing there in fire, gaining my free MP, boosting up so I can fire more arrows. And I was just laying it down, and I ended them real quick. I'm like, I feel really bad about that. I don't know. It's like broken, but like it has to be broken, and it's just
Yeah,
you
it's
know.
that's kind of cheese. It's you're cheesing it, but that's the
But
that's the game designer's
I'm not
fault.
doing anything weird like in
Yeah,
Bloodstain. Bloodstain, you invert the whole level, and then you can cheese some of the bosses that way because they can't come and hit you. Um,
but
and
that's
then
like
you
something you have
just
to be thinking a little bit outside the box for. Yeah, you're
dude,
right.
this is all straight up what's given to you.
So
I'm like,
that's
there's no way the people testing the game wouldn't have come across this.
yeah, that's just game design problems there. They probably knew about it, and they like you said, it's a small team that is in the credits, and they're doubling up on jobs. It sounds like so. They probably were like, well, it's not broken as far as like you can complete it, and it's sort of fun, and it's not annoying. So we can't fix that.
I consider it a competent indie game for the price. It's not, it's other games do it better, and they have more polish. But once again, I never expected this game to come out to the U.S. And for the price, I think I had a fun time with it. I enjoyed it, and I had a good time enjoying playing it. And I would recommend if you want something that's not that difficult. I mean, like I said, I think one boss I died like 3 or 4 times on it, and then I find you kind of figure out the pattern, and then yeah, all right, that's how most of these Metroid Vania style games go. If you have a particularly difficult boss, and you can make things more challenging for yourself if you wanted to, set your own limitations.
Yeah.
But honestly, it's just I didn't see a need for it. I completed it and I enjoyed my time with it. So, yeah,
It's got a pretty good
it's on Game Pass. So give it a shot if it's free. Essentially, if you already own Game Pass.
it's got a pretty good rating on Metacritic. I forget what it was, but I think I saw it was like 87 or something like that. I don't remember what it was, but it was high, and I was like, oh dang, people are liking it who are playing it. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, I'm glad it came out for you. I'm glad you like it. I wish I had time to play it.
It's a 93% on Steam out of 4,490
That's pretty good.
reviews.
It's pretty dang good. I would have liked to have played it before the podcast. I may still try to play it. It is out on Switch, like you said, but it's there's a physical release for it in Japan, or I think there's a Korean release or something. Anyway, it has English support on it, so it's expensive to get it from there, but I do want to fill my shelf with more Switch boxes. So if I do decide to play it, I'll probably shell out the money and support a game that you like, from a property that you like. But
I
remains
wanted
to be
to
seen.
buy the physical version of it. Um, it was one of those things that, generally speaking, when games like that come out, they never make it to the U.S., but they have English support. Generally it's the like I think it's just considered the Asian release,
Yeah,
which generally targets more of Southeast Asia and like Hong Kong and stuff because uh, English is more relevant there, and it's easier to do English than it is to specifically localize to their whatever country you're at. So that's why it's
yeah, oh, yeah,
you'll get that a lot with a lot of Japanese games like dating sims and stuff like that, or visual novels. They'll go ahead and make an Asian release as a lump sum, and they'll have English like menu support at the very least.
yeah. So like if it's like, well, we're gonna release this in Indonesia, and there's like 9 different main Indonesian languages, not to mention all of the dozens of dialects and stuff. We're just gonna put it out in English,
Yeah.
and then they can sort it out from there. That's yeah, that does make sense because it's probably pretty hard to get it into Indonesian and Vietnamese and Cambodian and all that stuff. But yeah, so I might try to do that. But there's a lot to play right now, so we'll see.
Yeah, like I said, go ahead and don't feel bad about giving Game Pass a shot, and see if you're in it to dip your toe, and if you like it enough, you can always buy it at the back end because to have it up there on the shelf. I really tempted, but I if it ever comes out to the U.S., then I'll pick up a copy. But to import, if I'm going to start importing that, I'll start importing a bunch of other stuff, and that's just a rabbit hole I can't go down.
Yeah, because yeah, you don't want to go down that rabbit hole. But like, I mean, to your point, playing it on Game Pass is a vote uh, in the positive. You play it on Game Pass, you and a bunch of other people, obviously, but they see that's one more person that's playing it, all the way through the completion or whatever. So yeah, people out there, if there's ever a game that you want to support, then don't feel like you just have to buy it. Just playing it, they see those numbers and they go, okay, there's definitely people who are enjoying it and enough to play it a lot. So maybe we'll make another one.
Mhm. All right, that's it for me though. So hopefully next week, now that I got my PC back, I'll be able to hit up a few more games than just one. So how about yourself though? What have you been able to touch?
So I've been playing this game. Came out in 2018, I think, called Moonlighter. It's like an indie game. I've been playing it on Switch. So this game, I think made a lot of sort of game of the year lists. Not obviously like top game of the year, but pretty high on some lists back then. Um, so this game is essentially you are a boy, a young hero whose family is gone now. Your one father or whatever died, and I think that's kind of how it goes, something along those lines. And you inherit this shop, and then the shop sells like dungeoneering type goods. So heroes come into the shop and buy equipment, and then they go out and fight in the dungeons and fight monsters and stuff like that. So that's your job during the day. But at night, you put on a backpack and you go into the dungeon yourself to find loot and stuff. So you fight monsters, you find loot, and then you teleport back to the town, and you put out all the stuff that you found in your shop, and then the day comes, and you open your shop and you sell the loot. So it is really good. It's a really good game.
Isn't this game, if I remember correctly, it looks kind of like a Zelda, like like NES Zelda style or Super NES, like that kind of top down, gameplay. So like
Yeah,
Link to the Past.
yeah, it's like that. It's a top down kind of pixel sprite type game. The art in it is good. It's as detailed as it needs to be in certain places, and it's good. It has a good aesthetic to it. The combat is pretty similar. As far as I can tell, you have like a sword and shield, but then you also have a spear, which at the beginning they just give you a broom. So it's kind of funny for that. You have potions and stuff. You have a roll, like a dodge roll. I don't think there's a dash. Really, you can charge and kind of dash with, but it's more of a like a spear type dash than a dash out of the way. Um, but yeah, so or like a double forward or something like that. It's not really like that. But it's the combat in it is pretty good. I have been playing it on hard. I don't know what possessed me to switch it from normal to hard. But I'm about 5 hours in, and I am not nearly as far as I probably should be. I think the game, or how long to beat, says that you can beat the game in about 12 hours if you just spear through it. And I'm not anywhere near like that point, the point that I should be at. So I don't know. But I've been enjoying it, even though it's on hard mode. It was really difficult at the beginning, and I've kind of gotten to a point where I have enough gear and I'm powerful enough to where I can make it further into the dungeons and stuff like that. But the loop in this game is really, really perfect, because you do this dungeon and you're fighting and stuff. You get the loot. If you fuck up, then you only get to take back like a very few amount of items. Like if you die in the dungeon, then you only get to take back a few amount of items. But if you get to a point where your backpack's pretty full, then you can teleport back for a cost, and then you're better off. So the game kind of makes you gamble with that, because it's like, man, I'm super low on health, but I like still have some room in my backpack, and I know there's some good stuff around here, because I have definitely gotten to that point and then kept going and then died, and I just like scream fuck like really loudly, and it makes me so bad, but then I'm like, dang, I gotta do it again. So you come back from the dungeon, and you go to your shop, and they just give you like one table to begin with, but you can actually expand your shop out with different upgrades. And there's different like people come in, and then you set the price. The game doesn't tell you the price, but you set the price, and you figure out whether or not it's too low or too high or way too high or just right, by the reactions that you get from your patrons. So it's possible to, and I've done this several times, where I set the price on an item at the beginning. I set it too low because I have no idea what it's supposed to be, and the person's like, "Whoa, this is a really good deal," and they come and buy it, and I'm like, "Ah, shit, I just lost money on that," and vice versa and stuff like that. So it is it's really a great melding of two totally separate mini games that feed into each other really, really well. And then there's like, upgrading systems for your weapons and stuff and enchantments. And then you can upgrade different parts of the town as well to get new, like, to get new different stuff. Um, all in all, it's a really fantastic game. On Switch, though, in game it runs pretty fine, I would say. I've seen a little bit of stuttering here and there, but it's not too bad. The problem is loading. When you load into a dungeon, it takes 20 seconds, 30 seconds, which is a long time. When you come out of a dungeon, it takes about the same amount of time. But like, so, that at the beginning I was like, dang, this really sucks. But I was dying a lot. I was dying a lot, so I was getting booted out of dungeons and having to go back in, pretty often. But if you're not a shitty player like me, or you play it on an easier mode, then you're probably in those dungeons longer. So it's longer between load times. It's not as bad. But otherwise, it'd be a pretty damn perfect Switch game. I don't know how much more I'm gonna get to play of it. I do like kind of turning it on, having a session right before bed for like 20 minutes. Usually ends up being like 40 minutes because it's a pretty dang fun game. So it's great for that. I don't know how much longer I'm going to play it though, because there's lots of good stuff coming out. But definitely enjoyed my time with it. Really cool game.
Yeah, it looks like for all the consoles, it on Metacritic here got like low 80s, so like PS4 81, the Xbox One 84, Nintendo Switch 83, iOS gave it an 88, and PC gave it a 74.
Dang,
So, but
that's
as a whole, yeah, I think on PC there's just so many more games on the similar vein, so it's a little more difficult to
I guess,
judge.
yeah,
So there's a lot more competition in that space, while the iOS, I feel like there's less competition. So that therefore, like things like this are more novel.
yeah.
Hence the reason I gave it the highest score. That's at least my ballpark guess. But all the consoles, you're looking at 81, 84, 83. So that's the really tight knit group. So obviously it's a solid game.
Yeah, it's definitely solid. I don't know. I mean, maybe it kind of drops off toward the end or whatever. But I could have sworn I saw higher than that, but I guess they were probably pulling early Metacritic ratings for the some of the stuff that I saw, because I feel like I saw like 90s, but I guess that was probably early on and it dropped
I'm
off.
also on the wiki page, which has a link to like, so I'm not sure how it's the aggregate score, so
Yeah.
I'm
Okay.
not really sure.
Well,
But yeah,
anyway, I definitely enjoy it, and I mean, I got it for like, I think it's on Game Pass right now. I didn't know that, or it wasn't on there whenever I bought it, but I bought like the complete Ultra Edition or whatever for Switch for like less than $8. I think it was seven and change, and anyway, it's totally worth it for that. But definitely worth a try if you don't want to pay any money. By playing it on Xbox Game Pass.
all right. So now this is kind of a workshop in progress. I would like to have this thing to go out through like I'm going to propose something to go from now till at least until we feel like it's done, or just throughout the year, where uh, we're going to go ahead and try to recommend a game to one another. And it's a I want you to play this, and you haven't gotten around to playing this. You really should. This is something I would recommend to you. Also, in the future, I would also like to throw down like a challenge. I know you dislike this kind of game, or you normally wouldn't play this, but I challenge you to go ahead and give that a shot. So right now, I'm going to throw down a recommendation, and I want you to pick between three genre of game, and depending on the genre you pick, I'll let you know what game you get saddled with. So you get to pick between an open world GTA like game. You can do a third person, you know, I guess it'd be action adventure kind of, or a Metroidvania style game. So
Okay.
out of those three, what would you be most interested in? And the Metroidvania would not be the Record or Lodoss Wars. Just heads up.
Okay, because I was thinking that's probably going to be that, which I was, I was like, okay, I would play that. I don't know. Let fate decide. Um, damn it, damn it all. We're gonna roll the dice.
Okay.
So I'm gonna roll a 6-sided die. 1 and 2 will be the first one. 3 and
Okay.
4 the next. On and on. 5. So that's gonna be
All
the
right.
third one. So a Metroidvania.
All right. If I remember correctly, you only got to play a little bit of Guacamelee, right?
I played to the last boss.
Oh, did you
I
really?
played up to it,
Oh,
but I didn't beat him because it was hard and I
okay.
just bounced off.
Okay, then never mind, because I could have sworn you never got around I thought you only touched the beginning of that game. All
Do
right.
I need to re-roll?
Well, yeah, re-roll for the first two then. I mean, I have another Metroidvania style game that might work, but I want to save that for later for you. So,
Okay, 2. So this would be the very first one.
all right. That's going to be my one of my personal favorites, Sleeping Dogs.
Okay, yeah, I have turned on Sleeping Dogs before, but yeah, never played more than 30 minutes of it. So I've always wanted to play that. So and I own that, I believe. I guess you probably picked this based on that, at
I knew that you had access to it through my library at the
the
very
very least.
least,
Yeah.
and so I wasn't worried about that at all.
Okay.
I knew you'd be able to. That's another thing is I'm trying to pick games in which uh, you don't actually have to shell out money for. So it's either that's on on your Steam backlog that's say like next to no time played, or it'll be something that I know I have on mine. So yes, for my first recommendation, I'm throwing down Sleeping Dogs. I personally really like this game. This is one of my comfort food games where I go back to every so often. I got the platinum uh, both on the PS3 and the PS4. Uh, I I own it on the PC as well. So yeah, I like this game all around quite a bit. It's
Yeah,
has a good story.
people love this game. That's been talked about for years. People are always sad that that the that the studio broke up or they couldn't make another one or something like that. And
Yeah, they
um,
closed down the studio.
that was a So yeah, I definitely am excited to play this. Honestly, I wanted to play it for a long time, and now this is a good excuse to play it. What's her name? Emma Stone is in this game.
Yes, it's funny because it's one of those things that you can see if they had more of a budget and more of a time, how they would have fleshed out a lot more things. So certain things are a little truncated. I mean, I said by no means it's a perfect game, but as far as a GTA like game, this is probably one of my favorites, if not my favorite.
Yeah,
Uh, so it has this was done also around the same time as I think Square Enix had a part in it, so therefore it has certain mechanics like the
yeah,
car hijacking from Just Cause, where you can just jump from in a car chase, you jump, jump on the hood of your car and then jump forward to the following car. Super stupid. But the fighting and the melee combat is all based off, like the old Hong Kong kung fu films. You got interactive environments. You can really mess people up in a very gruesome ways. The shooting is actually pretty solid for especially at the time. Uh, that was the problem. Is a lot of those Grand Theft Auto just had really terrible aiming and shooting mechanics, and so this one was not the best, but it was far better than any of those, especially at the time.
A little better.
Uh, yeah, and I learned some of the Cantonese. I learned. I had a buddy in Japan who was from the he had his family immigrated to the U.S. and so he was teaching English as an American citizen, but his whole family is from Hong Kong, and so I'm like, yeah, I know a little bit. I spouted off some of the stuff. He's like, he laughed so hard. He's like, how did you learn all these bad words? I'm like, I learned it from this game. And he just thought it was he told his mom and his grandma, like when he talked on Skype, he's just like, yeah, my buddy, he's played this game and he learned all these bad words from that. And like he thought it was just the funniest thing, which I specifically remembered some of that stuff. He's like, I played it enough and it's hilarious.
That's
I like I
awesome.
said, I hope you like it. It's like I said, it's a solid. I think it's a really solid game. If you have any questions, for sure. But then next time we meet up, and when you're hosting, I figured you can throw down a recommendation to me, and you know, it'll we maybe not have to touch back. There's no real time limit when we have to get this complete by. So if you want to give us a report next time as homework, that's fine. But if you don't want to talk about it until 2 episodes from now, at least we can touch back then. So it'll give you a whole month to, because these are meant to be side games.
Yeah.
Essentially, I don't want them to take over, any of the more pressing things that you want to play. But it's most definitely because I'm throwing out this personal recommendation. I'm like, it's like when a friend says, "Hey, dude, watch this movie. Or read this book I'm really into. You give this band a listen." This is most definitely one of those things. Like you should really play this game, especially since it's older and you didn't get a chance to around the first time. But this is something personally that I'm like, give it a shot. So
Yeah, I
next time
mean,
around,
like honestly, this game, I mean, I haven't played it yet, and I don't really know what Sifu is going to be like, but this game and Sifu are kind of spiritual siblings. It seems like to me. Obviously, Sifu is going to be more sci-fi or fantasy involved, but just kind of the Cantonese and kung fu sort of a connection.
that's racist. Spiritual siblings just because they're Asian.
All right, I give up. I've been canceled.
Yeah. No,
Moving
man,
on. I'll cut all that.
I
I'll cut all
want to play
that.
Sifu so bad too. I didn't play much of Absolver. I was super bad at it, and so I'm like, this is way too technical for me. But now that it's gone from sword play to like kung fu action, I'm like, okay, now I really want to get into it. So
Yeah.
yeah,
So it's going to be on Epic. Sifu is going to be on Epic. I didn't see. I mean, I'm sure it's on like PlayStation and stuff like that too, but it's coming to Epic first, so I'll probably get that. Unfortunately, that's unfortunate because we can't share games on Epic. I don't think, but we can on.
you can. It's just a little more convoluted, but
Okay,
you can totally make it work.
maybe we can make it work then. Yeah, we'll see. But yeah, I accept your challenge, and I will see how far I get in Sleeping Dogs by next time. Maybe the time after that. We'll see.
Yeah, I say for sure we'll bring it up when I host again. So in about a month's time, that'll give you some time to at least get around to it.
Yeah, and I shall present you with a challenge of my own on our next cast.
Excellent.
Probably touch base with you on some things that I'm not sure if you've played or not, because I know you've played a lot more than I have. But I think there's some things that you probably have not done that I can find. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. All right, well that's great. And so now we're gonna let you take it away with the news.
So, two main things of news. The first thing is frickin' massive, and that is that Microsoft buys Activision Blizzard for just under $70 billion. 68.7 or something like that. I think it's 68 something $billion is what they purchased it for. Really, really big acquisition in gaming. Just colossal, honestly. Kind of out of the blue, especially since Activision has been in trouble for the past 6 months and more. Um, like, what
It's
do you?
because of them being in trouble, it made it so much easier to buy them, though. That's the thing.
That's kind of what I was. That's what I was about to say. Is like I wonder how much it's like if this would be happening if they hadn't been in so much trouble and all the troubles that they've been in. If maybe that brought their sale price down to something that Microsoft was like, well, we could make a move here.
Well, I think it was Phil Spencer. I thought there was an article or something like that about him essentially realizing that there's blood in the water and went ahead and approached, was it Bobby Kotick? Kotick? I forget now how it's pronounced. But yeah, approached him and wanted to see about now's the time. Plus, Bobby being in such hot water and being like, it's perfect time for him to do the rich man thing and jump ship and try to get away more or less scot free. Hopefully that's not the case in the end. But what's going to happen is generally if you're still attached to the company while all this stuff goes down, then you get in trouble. But then then afterwards the company then does the thing of, okay, we understand this person's bad. They're going to get in trouble and we're going to fire them, essentially, or we're getting rid of them. But if he jumps ship beforehand, he's just like, he not only gets a paycheck, but he gets to wipe his hands away and try to get off scot free like an asshole rich guy. So only time will tell if he actually gets his just desserts. But hopefully we get some. He'll have to pay in the end instead of get
Yeah,
paid.
I mean, I think that he's going to be released once the deal goes through. The deal is not set to happen for a while. I think they're saying July 22 through July 23 is when the deal is supposed to be finalized. So it's not a done deal yet in the strictest sense of the term, though everybody thinks that it will happen. I don't think there's any issues with the SEC saying that they can't do it, or if there's any kind of government block. I don't think it's going
Yeah.
to run into that.
Well, that's one of those things that if there was something, if you're trying to hold like the monopoly card over you, like technically you can then look and be like, look at all these. There's plenty of developers out there because every indie developer would then be classified. So then you'd have it'll be a messy situation if they try to. It's part of it is it's a some of it's bad because more corporations getting the bigger corporations are only getting bigger by swallowing up the medium to large size fish. And like, well, then that only leaves the megacorps and the small indie guys. And you're looking at the amount of money they spend. I mean, Microsoft really does have that fuck you money, that, like you said earlier, because like if you look at it in the grand scheme of things, Lucas sold Star Wars for like what 4.2. No, Star Wars was for 10. That's right. Marvel was for 4.2. 4.2 billion for Marvel. I mean, that is now like the biggest, franchise now, period, for the most part, and then 10 billion for Star Wars. So that's insane. I mean,
The
you
Activision
combine those,
Blizzard is 70 billion.
yeah. I mean, that's so if you look at was it Marvel 4.2 billion, that's 16 times that amount.
Yeah.
Um So yeah, it's Activision Blizzard. That is the biggest. Like if it's not the biggest, it's like it has to be close to. I think it is the biggest entertainment transaction of this sort.
Yeah, I mean, like those acquisitions by Disney were quite a while ago now. So there's some inflation going on there, but also just like kind of like the thing I would say that is the main difference is that like those are big franchises and you can make a lot of money with Marvel and Star Wars. You really can. You have toys, you have merchandise, all that stuff, but you still have to shell out money to make like that merchandise. For Activision Blizzard, they have Call of Duty, which I want to talk about in a second, and then Overwatch to a lesser degree, some other stuff. that literally just prints money. Like Call of Duty just prints money, day after day, week after week. Sure, they spend money to make levels and gear and cosmetics and stuff, but they really, it's to me, I don't think it's going to be as much as like having to get space for merchandise and moving it around and stuff like that. So in a way, like it's kind of surprising that it's a more expensive buy, but when you think about it, like these are just money printing machines, it also does make some sense that it would cost more to just buy a money machine, because there's less work that you have to do on that end. That's kind of my guessing, but also time has passed and the prices on this stuff has just gone up, and like Activision Blizzard before all of this mess, they were a perfectly healthy company, with a lot of really great stuff going on for them. Marvel, at the time that they were bought, not so much. They had a lot of legacy. Comic books, were not doing as great as they used to be, so they were probably kind of cheap for that. And then Star Wars was, hadn't been made in a while, and George didn't really want to do much more with it, but probably should have sold Star Wars for more than they did. But
I mean, that was back in 2012 is when Star Wars was sold.
It's like 9 years ago. Well, just about 10 years ago now. Yeah.
Yeah. So they, but still, it's like even with inflation, it's just like it still doesn't compare.
Yeah, the price has just gone up. Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah. Well, that, and it's just this last year, since COVID, there seems to be way more of these acquisitions happening left and right. So like now that the other part of it is like, well, you can now look forward to a bunch of more stuff coming to Game Pass.
Yeah.
At the same time, though, it's just like, okay, how long will it take for them to do another tier? Like, Game Pass, Plus, because it didn't take much for Nintendo to be like, all it took was some Sega games and 64 or whatever for Nintendo to be like, you now have to pay more to get this. It's like
they're worse about it, but yeah.
Oh yeah, well that's also overall cheaper, as well. But when it comes to Game Pass, I'm like, I think it's going to be, granted this deal hasn't even finished yet, so you have at least probably another year, and you're safe before prices go up. But when they actually do fully emerge, we'll see. I mean, it depends on how many Xboxes are out in the wild. If you can freely get them on the shelves, and bring them home at any given time, then they might be more quick to pull that trigger, because you're already in the ecosystem. But if it's still as scarce as it is now, then they might hold off to try to bait you in and then jack up the price later, because that's what I would do. I mean, if you wanted to get more bang for your buck, you tease it out at a cheap cost once everyone's like, this is great, and then like, okay, just like Amazon Prime or Netflix, and just slowly start incrementally increasing the prices every couple of years.
Yeah, that's the way to do it. Because like I mean I pay more now for Netflix than I did when I started. That's for sure. And it hasn't even been all that long, really. But yeah, like now would be the time to stock up if you can on months of Game Pass. If you can get like 2 years of Game Pass bought all at once, now might be the time to do it, because once Activision and Blizzard come through with all their games, they might decide, oh, this is worth more, and we're going to charge more. So something I didn't think about until I was reading some stuff about this acquisition is the Call of Duty. Everybody freaking out about what's going to happen with Call of Duty. I don't give a fuck about Call of Duty in the slightest. But it is funny to watch people freak out about it, because everyone who does care about it is worried about it being taken away from PlayStation. So you've got all of these people who just bought a PlayStation. Some of them waited damn near a year to do it, and now they're going to get their Call of Duty snatched away from them, whatever the acquisition goes through. It'll be a while. I think they said that there's the next 3 games are contracted with Sony, so it'll be a good chunk of time. But still, the future of Call of Duty on PlayStation is in doubt for the moment.
I think it's just they're gonna keep it. It's gonna sell more if you have it open to everyone. Because there's just the ecosystem. There's just so many PlayStations out there. To cut that off, you're not gonna. You may move a few consoles doing that, but chances are, uh, most of the people already have two consoles anyways. So you're not really gonna be making. By the time, it's like I honestly, those who want to play Call of Duty, they'll find a way, and you're better off just making it available to everyone though, because honestly, it's the smart move. You make it available to as many things as possible. Uh, Microsoft seems to be wanting to make things available all around everywhere. Like if they could, there's always that rumor going around them. They might try to bring Game Pass to the Switch. That would be really neat.
Yeah,
Uh,
it'll be wild.
I mean, but they're streaming to the Switch is such a difficult thing from the over Wi-Fi. Digital Foundry just recently has a video up about them testing out the new Kingdom Hearts because
Oh yeah,
there's demos, and that's streaming only, $90 for 3 games, and they all run like ass apparently. And then they tested out some other games like was that Plague Tale or something, and they also did Control, and Control was the only one that ran like halfway decent.
mm,
Uh, so,
it's just
but
not there yet.
yeah, they also did Guardians. Guardians was constantly um, glitching for some of the artifacts, like his Star Lord, the patch on his back leather jacket was in the video was constantly floating above his head. It might as well have been a Sims little diamond icon, because it was just constantly just floating, like for some reason just textured above his, floating above his body. So it's not ready yet to constantly be switching or streaming to the Switch. I don't know if it's a limitation on the hardware or just the technology for streaming in general. I think it's a little bit of both. So
It'll probably be the
uh,
next iteration of the Switch before they can really think about doing that in a
reliably, yeah,
reliably. But
I
yeah,
agree.
yeah, like I think you're probably right. I think they're probably going to keep Call of Duty um, on because it's just such a big game. They're going to keep it on all the consoles. Sony might have to pay a little bit more for it. I would probably do that if I was Microsoft. I'd go, why don't you pay a little bit more for it? And but if I was Sony, people are kind of looking to Sony for some reason. I guess because that's how people think. But they were looking to Sony to like have some kind of rebuttal or answer for this, and I think that they will, but it'll be a while. But I think that Sony would be wise to begin thinking about what other Activision or what other acquisitions they can make to kind of bolster their own library, because I mean, they're just like companies have to get bigger, and I think Sony's going to have to get bigger in order to compete long term with Microsoft in general. But
See, but I think I'm on the bandwagon of that's not good for us in the end.
I'm not saying it's
Uh,
good for us. I'm just saying I'm just putting myself in the shoes of Sony and Microsoft. Like that's the way they think. But as for the gamer, yeah, I think you're right. Long term, this is kind of iffy.
Yeah, so I mean, the other thing is people are also looking at Microsoft to finally try to, like what's their next acquisition going to be? Are they finally going to do that Japanese buying that they've been, rumored forever? But the legality behind, like trying to be a Western company buying a Japanese company that's stationed in Japan is going to be just really difficult. There's going to be a lot of hurdles to go through. It'd be insane. You know, I think Sega would probably be the a prime candidate, and that seems to be targeted a lot. Like they should just buy them, or maybe a Bandai Namco. I'm like, yeah, they could in theory, but once again, it's just how much uh, Japan. I don't think the Japanese company, Japan as a whole, would want to give up. The government would want to give up their major, um, some of their major companies to the West, and they would. I think they would try to do their best to block it. Now, if there was like a opening a new branch, they've never had a problem with that. But to actually fully own a Japanese company and just buy it outright and be, like it's not America where you can let China own, almost the entire nation. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think they would do their darndest to stop Western companies from trying to come in and buy their stuff. Um, how legal that is, I don't know. I don't know. I'm not a lawyer and all that stuff, but I can see them doing their best to stop that. But on the other hand, on a positive side, other than more games coming to the Game Pass, no, Call of Duty might start slowing down and coming out with less iterations. Some of the other companies behind Blizzard, Activision might actually get a chance to come out and do some real work. Because doing
Yeah,
stuff like Tony Hawk and stuff, you can actually come out and make a proper sequel opposed to being like, hey, good job doing this thing. Now go back on the Call of Duty machine, crank that thing.
I definitely have not liked, a lot of stuff that's come from Blizzard or Activision in many years. So I am glad that maybe Microsoft will have a little more oversight, because I think Microsoft in general makes better decisions as far as the things that I want to play than Activision or Blizzard. So kind of keeping some of the art direction and some of that stuff the same is fine, but the way in which it's produced and the type of gameplay that they put forward, we'll see what Phil Spencer has in store for us, and who he hires to put in those positions. I imagine it'll be a slow turning ship, but over time probably see some pretty interesting differences. So yeah, that's going to be interesting to see what happens next for sure.
Yeah. All right. What else you got on the news?
So the only other thing that I want to talk about, I feel like there was something else, but I don't know where it went. But the next most important thing is a little story that we've sort of been following. A few weeks ago, late last year, late 2021, there's a YouTube channel by the name of Totally Not Mark, a British guy that does videos on various Toei animation works. He got copyright strikes for some 150, over 100 videos, basically ruining his channel completely, making it where he can't monetize a lot of that stuff. So he went away for like a month. He just posted a video of just black screen, him talking, saying, I'm not gonna fight anymore. I'm just gonna go away until 2022. See you guys later. And then he came back a couple days ago, I think on the 26th, I forget, but just this week. And he came back and he said, we won, sort of. So the thing that happened is that, and I'm going to maybe screw up some details here, but Toei did not do copyright. So there's a fine line. They did not do like copyright infringement tags. I forget exactly what it's called. They did like a full DMCA takedown or something on each video. So they're not allowed to do that according to YouTube. So what YouTube did is they got in touch with Mark and they said, okay, so here's what's going on. They're not actually allowed to do that according to our terms of service. They have to go through this other stuff. They could have taken your videos down, but they didn't do it right. And so we're going to ignore everything that they did and put all your videos back up. And we are going to basically make it so that Mark, your videos, your channel is not visible in Japan at all. And um, so that's a pretty big victory because I mean Mark's stuff is all in English as it is. He doesn't try to get views in Japan, but basically YouTube decided to side with him on a technicality. There is a way that Toei could have done it in the first place that would have made it so that YouTube would be like, our hands are tied and your stuff is all gone. So because it's kind of funny, but like Toei being stupid or silly in the first place and just kind of, well, no, it is stupid because they struck down a lot of his videos that were not really anything bad. They weren't like they were like literally him drawing the character or something like that. So just really silly thing to try to do. And it was just sort of at random. So by them doing that and them not doing it the right way, he got his channel back for the time being. So they've been kind of calling it a victory. I've been seeing some news that's like YouTuber beats Toei, and I understand the desire to want to have a nice headline like that, but to me, it's like he got away with one here. Don't poke the bear. Everybody just back away slowly and go, okay, we won on a technicality. Just shut up and leave it alone. Don't make Toei actually mad because I think it's just some intern at Toei that had to do some extra work on a particular week in December, and that's why his videos got taken down because it was just completely random. So anyway, it's a nice thing that happened, I guess, in the end. I don't know.
Yeah, well,
It's
I mean,
crazy.
it's like he made money off it and he had employees, so like, congrats on getting, your achievement back because that's a lot of time and effort put into that, and just to have it struck down um when there was really no need to. I mean, yeah, I can understand if he was doing stuff that was, you know, uh, subjectively like negative or hurtful to the company, to the bottom line. But for the most part, it just seemed to come out of nowhere. We're gonna make an example of someone, and yeah, just because we can. Cha- I don't know. My brain thinks that like somewhere along the line, some executive saw their kid watching this video and be like, Why aren't you watching the video? It's like the Japanese version or something, or someone Japanese reviewer. You're watching a Western person talk about. It's like, you know what? I'm gonna get rid of them because I'm high enough. It's some petty, stupid thing or something like that. It's like, you know, uh,
Yeah.
instead of reading the manga, I would rather watch this person talk about it. It's like, what?
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, it could very well be something like that. I think it's just sort of inexplicable, like why. But I mean, if it was me, if I were Mark, I would seriously consider next steps. I mean, I'm sure he has been ever since um, he backed away from it, like what they were going to do next. I think he had some. I mean, he's been doing some other stuff besides anime and manga. He was doing some Spider-Man videos and various movie stuff. If I were him, I would continue on in that direction. Sure, keep making your passion project stuff with Toei, but um, if it were me, I would continue to diversify and try to get away from every bit of money I make be based on the whims of Toei Animation. But yeah, so it's kind of a nice little thing to happen in 2022. Uh, but I'll keep following the story, and if anything else happens, I'll be sure to bring it up.
yeah. All right. Great. Well, that will be it for today's episode. Once again, this is the 10th episode of Another Dead Pixel. We appreciate you guys sticking around to the end, and this is my first time hosting in the new year. So it's a pleasure, and I'm looking forward to the rest of this new year. Hopefully, with that last article, maybe things might be looking up this time. I mean, we can't hold our breath, can't we?
Yeah, maybe.
All right, guys.
We'll
Well,
see.
thanks again, and you guys take it easy.
All right, guys. Have a good one. Bye.